The presentation I'm going to give for you today is about the technology of 3D printing and how it's going to affect our society. First, what is 3D printing? 3D printing is a common term that's used to describe the process of additive manufacturing. And additive manufacturing is taking a single resource, most commonly now is plastic, and using it to build layer by layer an object. There are three main types of 3D printers. The most common is the desktop 3D printer, which is a home user 3D printer, which uses plastic almost exclusively. The second most common is an industrial 3D printer, which more commonly uses a metal type of material in order to produce industrial quality parts. And the third most common is medical 3D printers, which actually use organic material in order to print different types of substances such as skin tissue or even now organs. Here's an example of a desktop 3D printer, which I built using parts and an online guide. It cost about $600 to $700 to source all the parts. This type of desktop 3D printer is called a Delta 3D printer. These are just a couple of the objects and the spare parts that I've printed on it. This short clip shows it in action, printing a spare part which allows me to connect the cooling fan directly to the heatsink. Although it may seem complex, this is actually the most simple form of 3D printing. All it takes is a plastic filament and pushes it through a hot nozzle, and as it melts, it lays it down layer by layer via a computer-generated path. Over the last 5 years, this technology has grown very rapidly in both availability and complexity. This has been facilitated by the open source nature of the technology. Most of the people using this are sharing their ideas and their improvements to the technology online for free with the manufacturers as well as the other end users. On the other end of the spectrum is the industrial and medical 3D printers. The companies that are producing these, by and large, keep their patents to themselves, and they don't allow any form of open source sharing of their ideas. Because many home 3D printers are open source, it allows any manufacturer who wants to take that design and produce it on their own to do so as long as they give credit to the original owner. This type of sharing has acted as a catalyst in the innovation of 3D printers. In addition to the open source nature of the 3D printers themselves, almost all of the files produced for 3D printers are also open source and posted online. Thanks to this type of sharing, I've been able to download files that are actually upgrades to my machine and print them off without having to pay for anything. Although desktop 3D printers are currently relatively limited in their function, there has been great advancements in the complexity of things that can be printed, especially by industrial 3D printers. For example, NASA has produced a 3D printer that is capable of operating in space, as well as printing things like a camera whole in one print. The company Stratasys, whose focus is on industrial 3D printing, has managed to produce machines that can create aerospace quality parts, such as jet turbines, in one print. One of the most exciting advances we will see from this technology is its application in space exploration. Currently, whenever we launch a space mission, we have to take all of the spare parts that we could possibly need, no matter how unlikely, on board the spaceship, which takes up much of the room. With 3D printing technology, we can instead just take one single 3D printer, as well as all of the resources we need for that printer, and print out any spare part we could possibly need. In addition to this, we could formulate it to use any of the resources that we find, for example, on the surface of the Moon or on the surface of Mars, in order to then further produce more objects. Expanding upon that idea, we could send a robotic exploration team to the surface of a planet, which could then utilize any of the resources that it finds to set up a base for any human explorers that are to follow. As this type of technology continues to advance, its applications will only become more and more unlimited. At some point in time, we'll be able to reassemble any matter into any other form of matter. At this point in advancement, I believe that the value of money will start to lower and the value of matter will start to be much, much higher. This idea will be much more likely as we approach the technology of molecular assembly, which will allow us to move particles on an atomic level. Here are a few more examples of the kinds of complex objects that 3D printers are already creating.